Perfect. Good evening, and I want to thank everyone for attending tonight, and I especially want to introduce and thank Dr. Monica Kelsey Brown for her first meeting tonight. It's exciting to Yes, absolutely. So we've not worked together, so we'll just we'll figure it out as we go.
That's right.
Yeah. The first thing I'd like to do is approve the minutes of our meeting from June 10th. So I need a motion. Mark?
Second. Oh, sorry, Katie.
Katie? Any questions on any of those minutes that anybody would like to bring up? If not, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. I need approval of the agenda. We're not changing anything, are we?
We are not.
We are good with that. So need approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second. Got to be on our toes here.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next are our public comments. And I do have a public comment tonight, which is exciting. We haven't had the public come to see us very often lately. Joel Lewis is wanting to speak to us. I think you kind of know the game plan, Joel, about 3 minutes, but you're kind of alone tonight, so if it goes over, you're fine.
Good evening. My name is Joel Lewis. I'm the president of the Waunakee IDEA. So on behalf of the Waunakee IDEA, I'm delighted to welcome our new superintendent, Dr. Kelsey Brown, to the Waunakee School District. We're thrilled to have you join us and look forward to the positive impact your leadership will bring to our schools and community. The Waunakee IDEA is a nonprofit organization that works with individuals, local leaders, organizations, and businesses, and the community at large to promote inclusion, diversity, equity, and access for all. Like you, we believe that every child deserves a supportive educational environment that empowers them to reach their full potential. As you begin this new journey, please know that we are eager to support you and to collaborate with you to advance our shared goals. We're committed to working together to ensure that all students and families know that they belong and are valued here. We believe that strong family engagement is key to addressing many of the issues our schools face and to fostering a more inclusive community. So we'd love to continue to help facilitate this. Once again, welcome to Waunakee, where our schools are the heart of our community. We look forward to partnering with you to build a stronger future for all our students. Thank you.
Thank
Welcome
you.
again.
Thank you, Joel. That was
Thank you.
very, very nice. And I didn't receive any other notes, but is there anybody else that wanted to say something? Thank you. Moving on to our reports tonight. I know we have some teachers in the audience, but I don't think you're here to do a teacher report. No. And we don't have any students doing student reports, so we are down to board reports. If there's anybody from the board that has attended anything except going on vacation. In the last. Oh, Judy, yes.
Yes, I went to the CISA 2 meeting in June 17th, where we elected a board of controllers, and our cluster group had voted for Eric Armstrong from Marshall, so he's representing us. And then we had a Zoom speaker, Tom McCarthy, who was the deputy state superintendent, who shared a few items about the strategic plan ahead and how hard it is to get the budget and some of the other difficulties they're having. And one is to help the legislators and the stakeholders understand what school funding means and how to get it. And so just sharing a little information, quick meeting. So
Thank you for attending, that, Judy. Anybody else have any sharing on the board? Thank you. Moving on to committee reports, starting with our budget committee, and I'm going to move that over to Steve.
Thank you, Joan. So we have 3 agenda items tonight that are recommendations from the budget committee. Allie's going to come up and help with that as well. So the first one is a topic related to the 23-24 budget. So one of the things that we talked about at the most recent budget committee meeting was options for funding what's called our post-employment benefit trust fund. So that's a fund that exists to fund retirement benefits for staff who have retired from the district. At the committee level, we did review 4 different options that would be available for consideration for the budget committee. As we talked through those 4 options, the committee landed on a recommendation of the option 1. If you do look in your board book notes, you will see that we outlined the 4 different options that were discussed by the committee. The option that is being recommended by the board members on the budget committee is to fund the payment for the 23-24 school year out of a fund that currently exists within our Fund 73 account. That is the $1.2 million fund. Those are funds that have been set aside over time that are not currently committed to any employees. So the board is recommending moving the $507,000 from the $1.2 million fund into the HRA account, and the HRA account is the account that's in individual employees' names. So we did spend a little bit of time going through these options at the committee, had a good conversation. One of the topics that did come out of the discussion, just to share with the other board members, is a goal to get back to budgeting the post-employment benefits on an annual basis. That was the district practice prior to the COVID timeframe, was to fund that on an annual basis. When we had the back-to-back 0 increase in the revenue limit per student, we moved away from the annual budgeting, but the committee did want us to take a close look at how could we get back to funding that on an annual basis. So the recommendation from the committee was option 1. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or any of the committee members are certainly welcome to share your thoughts as well. I know, Mark, you've shared some thoughts about getting back into the annual budgeting, for the Fund 73. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to share.
Sure. That's a commitment we have, and my concern is keep kicking that down the road. I think it puts us in a liability situation in terms of funding a liability we have for retirees. With the 1.27 million account in there, I see there a way where we could blend budgeting and eventually, lowering that number until maybe it's non-existent, so that it's not a sudden, $500,000 budget item for the next budget cycle. I think we can transition into that thing. And the other thing I think we do need to listen to are the actuarials in terms of, and the work that you and Ally do in terms of, okay, how many retirees are there and what is our actual responsibility for them moving forward?
Mm-hmm.
So as long as we keep meeting that responsibility, we're in good shape.
So should we vote on this, Steve, at this point? So unless there are any other questions, we would like a motion to accept the recommendation from the committee.
Motion to accept?
Second.
Any other questions about how we're funding that fund? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Thank you. And now we have the third draft of the budget, and I think that's Ally.
Yes. So every year in July, we bring the third draft of the budget to the board. The third draft of the budget really only has 2 major changes. The first one being changes to Fund 80. That included some Warrior Media adjustments, and then some maintenance and other community service updates to that budget. And then the other adjustment was the July 1st aid estimate that came out last Monday. It was about $130,000 more than we had estimated in the second draft of the budget. And Steve talked a little bit about at the committee meeting how Milwaukee affected that change. So I don't know, do you want to talk a little bit about that, or?
Sure. What Ally's referencing is you probably have seen some of the media stories about Milwaukee Public Schools and the state aid issues that exist. And the DPI has been working closely with Milwaukee There was a year where Milwaukee's expenses were much higher than anticipated, which resulted in equalization aid moving to Milwaukee Public Schools. And then now it appears like the opposite situation is occurring where state aid would be flowing away from Milwaukee Public Schools to other districts. And so the DPI has been working closely with Milwaukee to really evaluate the financial situation, but it is having a little bit of a state aid impact on different districts over a 2-year period of time. So we did talk a little bit with the committee about that topic as well.
One other thing about the third draft, there was a request for a more updated enrollment count, which you guys should have seen in your packets. And the good news is that it looks like we have about 34 students compared to what was estimated in the third draft of the budget.
Thank you for the details.
Is there any questions on the third draft?
If not, we would like a motion to approve the third draft of the budget.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any other questions on the third draft for Ally? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Thank you. And then the consideration of the data wrangler. Steve, are you going to talk about that?
Be happy to cover that. So at last month's board meeting, the discussion resulted in tabling this topic over a concern over the length of the agreement. So we did have the president of Data Wrangler into one of the budget committee meetings that reviewed the features of the project. For members of the public, basically this is a subscription service that will provide data to the district to improve our energy efficiency practices, as well as there are some optional features that we're not choosing to utilize at this time that would result in possible accounting changes. So at this point, the budget committee requested that we reconsider the length of the agreement. So Ally and I did have an opportunity to connect with the company. We did request the consideration of a trial, a 3-month trial, just to give the opportunity for the district to be able to see the product actually working in action, to be able to share with the budget committee members some of the reports that comes out of the system, and most importantly, the budget committee is interested in the actionable items that as a district that we would take to improve our energy efficiency. So we did present to the budget committee a 3-month trial. The committee did have feedback for us as far as making sure that the timing of starting the trial made sense, and to coordinate that very carefully with the 3-month trial, and to be sure to get the reports and the responses to that data back in front of the committee in a timely manner. With that discussion, the committee did recommend moving this 3-month trial forward to the board meeting tonight as a recommendation from the budget committee. I'd be happy to answer any questions about this trial agreement.
If not, I would like a motion to embark on the 3-month trial.
So moved.
Second. Any questions?
I just think it's important for the board to know that 3 months is a really short window.
Yes.
And we have 90 days to respond from the end of that 3rd month to rehire. So it's going to take quick action in terms of responding to the data.
Yeah. Thank you for that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Thank you. Next committee is our facility committee. Steve, I think I'll turn that over to you. You always do such a nice job.
Okay, thank you, Joan. So there are 2 agenda items in front of the board this evening that are coming out from the facility committee as recommendations. So the first one that we'll talk about is the middle school. So as you know, as board members, you did approve the middle school guaranteed maximum price at last month's meeting. When we did go over the guaranteed maximum price, Vogel did indicate that they were still completing the vetting process on a few of the subcontractors for the middle school. So subcontractors have been brought over a couple of different meetings to the board, and The facility committee did have an opportunity to review them. So at the facility committee meeting, our construction partners, Vogel, were in attendance. They did review the information with the committee. After the review, the facility committee did recommend approving the additional middle school subcontractors on a 3-0 motion. You will see the information included in your packet regarding those subcontractors. The other topic that we spent time discussing regarding the middle school was the value engineering process. If you recall at the June board meeting, Vogel identified some options for the district to consider with a goal of getting that information completed prior to June 30th, working that through with our architectural firm, EUA, working that through with the middle school administration and then district administration to review these items to determine which ones that we believe would be appropriate for us to consider. We did cut and paste into the board book notes the value engineering processes that were ultimately accepted by Randy prior to his retirement. So the list is included for your review. Because the school board has already approved the guaranteed maximum price, what happens with those savings is that they become an increased owner contingency. So with the notes that you see in your board packet, you would see that the original owner contingency was $570,000. The additional savings that came from those items identified in your notes increased the owner's contingency to $1,182,000. So those are funds that ultimately are reported to the committee on a monthly basis when the committee meets during the monthly meetings when we start reviewing the middle school financial report, as we've done every month with the Heritage Elementary School. So no action is needed from the full board on the value engineering component because those funds are remaining in the project and are being shifted to the owner contingency. The facility committee is recommending approval of the subcontractors, and we would request consideration tonight of approving the additional middle school subcontractors. And there will be one final round that Vogel would be presenting to the facility committee in August. So at the end of the evening, we will be requesting that the facility committee help us find a date in early August to review that final round of those final subcontractors for the middle school. We'd be happy to answer any questions for the board members regarding this topic.
Steve, you forgot one really important thing. The beginning of the school coming down is July 15th.
Yes.
Because I've been asked that many times. So bring your lawn chairs, July 15th.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. We need a motion for the subcontractors for July.
So moved.
Dawn and
Second.
Mark. Any questions on any of those particular, that list? It's in your board book. If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Thank you. And we have a few maintenance projects, not too many this month.
Yep, so the second item that has a recommendation from the facility committee tonight is the approval of district-wide capital maintenance projects. What I want to point out to the board members is the recent storm damage that you will see that we've had to include on these reports. So just to note that we have a $25,000 deductible on our property insurance policy. We did have some pretty significant damage at Arboretum Elementary School. So we had a significant amount of water cross Arboretum Drive and end up in the second grade neighborhood at Arboretum. So our maintenance team has been working very carefully with, first of all, we did bring in some remediation experts to remove the carpeting, basically drill some holes in the cabinetry, remove a portion of the drywall, and so that repair is ongoing right now. We also had damage at the middle school. The middle school damage is more significant and will impact the start of the school year. So at the middle school, the field house floor was damaged beyond repair, so we did have to bring in a remediation firm that has removed the gym floor. That process has almost been completed. We've received 2 quotes. We've been able to work with the 2 firms to try to find the most time-sensitive approach to getting that repaired. And so we're working on trying to do that as best as we can. We've come up with a scheduled solution to have them install the subflooring of the gym floor first, and then order the remaining portion of the gym floor, which will need to be installed in early September. So we're working with our insurance company, with the contractors, and with the school administrators to try to pull this off as quickly as we can, but the damage was pretty significant in the field house. And then the one that we did talk to you about last month was the damage that occurred in May. The damage from May is the one that resulted in the high school roof over the pool area. The entire roof has to be replaced at this point. The damage was just too significant. So we are now working with our insurance company. We do believe we've got some August dates ready for that. And then there's quite a bit of miscellaneous damage that occurred as well with the May storm. But for all 3 of those insurance claims, we're looking at a $25,000 deductible for each of them. The cost will certainly be more significant than that. But that was really a focus of what we had discussed at the facility committee meeting. The list is quite small. If you open up your board book, you'll see that the list for this month is quite small. The reason for that is we brought the larger projects already to the committee earlier this year to move forward, but the committee did recommend moving these forward for consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody might have about some of our recent facility issues or any of the items on the list.
Any questions for Steve? If not, I need a motion for the final, or the list this month of our capital maintenance projects.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Thank you, and thank you, Steve. Next is our curriculum committee, and Tim is also on vacation, so Mark.
Right, Tim and Amy did a really nice job of with both attachments. If you're looking for a more detailed explanation of what each test is, that'd be attachment number 2. Since the original schedule came out, the DPI did approve of the AMSWeb Plus as the universal screener, and then also the mentoring screener for those students who need ongoing testing during the school year. The date for those are still waiting to be revealed.
Okay.
So what we need is just approval for the test schedule.
And this comes each year about this time, the test schedule, so I would need approval of the 24-25 test schedule.
So, second.
Any questions on any of that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. DEI committee,
The most significant portion of our DEI subcommittee was spent reviewing Tiffany's. Tiffany had presented the curriculum and staff's DEI plan it's a 3-year plan. The subcommittee did provide feedback about adjustments we'd like to see to that plan. Some of those adjustments have already been made. The intent is to bring that plan back to the subcommittee next month and then to the full board, assuming everything checks out. The important thing for the board to understand is that it's going to be a living document, so we just need to understand that there'll be adjustments to see what works, what doesn't work within that plan, and to have that flexibility built in.
so it'll come to the full board in August, is that correct?
Yes. After we review as a subcommittee the adjustments that Tiffany's already started making to that.
Okay, perfect, thank you, Dawn. Policy committee, so a good chunk of the policy committee's work is the 700 series, and I know in the past frequently we take those as a chunk and Randy's here to answer questions. Between, I think, Steve and Monica and I, we will try to go through some of those questions for you. But let's just focus on the 700. There are some kind of out of order and some special kind of policies at the end. So we're looking at the list through the 743, but then we have the notice of the asbestos, which is a 725. So that chunk, and there's the grid that is our usual mechanism where Randy first reviews it, sends it to administrators, Ted reviews it, and then it came to the committee, and the committee did agree and pass that group 3-0. So, if there are any questions on the 700 group, we could talk about that now, and if not, I would take a motion for that group.
So moved?
Good. Any concerns? Mark, you look like you want to talk about it.
No.
Nope, you're good? Okay. All in favor of the 700 group of policies, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Just am grateful for the chance to have a detailed review of what our policies are. It's always
I
good to do
know,
that as a board
yeah.
member.
So then we had a couple additional policies that came through, starting with a high school graduation requirement. I don't know if you want to open that one up.
You want the actual policy?
Yeah, why don't you open, well, it doesn't, either is fine, I think. So the basic change in the graduation requirement is for the incoming freshmen, there's a state mandate that they have to have a half a credit in a finance. And so it applies really to the graduates of the 2028-29 school year. But, you know, we need to get it in the book so that the kids, as they select courses, understand the requirement. The freshmen coming in require that. Now, one thing that I asked Tim at the meeting is, could it be a math credit, could be a social studies credit? And the answer is no. It has to be in its own little category. It might be dollars and cents if that can be revamped to meet all the requirements. So it might be a course we already have on the books, but it can't fit into social studies like it couldn't be our law course. So those were things I had talked to Tim about. So it does bring our electives from 9 to 8.5, which is always sad to lose electives for our kids. So I'd be happy to try to answer any other questions or.
I know the legislature's also put other requirements within the social studies curriculum for different subjects that have to be included. We don't have to incorporate that in the graduation requirement, it seems, because you're part of social studies.
Not that came through our discussion at this, with this policy. This is really the only change.
Yeah, I hadn't heard anything about anything of that sort. Just financial literacy, as to your point, a standalone
Yeah.
course.
So, and if you're uncomfortable in any way, I mean, I don't think it's necessary. We could, many times we do a reading, and if you want Tim to be here to discuss it further. If not, I would take a motion to approve the change in our high school
So
graduation.
is this a standalone?
It is a standalone.
Okay.
Mhm.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any other questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. The next standalone is the filling board vacancies. And I'm not even sure how it got out of,
I can speak to that.
yeah, why it even came at this point.
So
I can
we
speak.
use the PRG, the WASB PRG, to update all our policies. In addition to that is what we need to do is we need to go they are constantly reviewing the policies throughout the year, from the beginning to the end. So while they're updating ours, and we're in the 700s right now, they're looking at all of them. And so these were a couple, the graduation one and the filling board vacancies one, that they said needed some updating. And so the one thing that Randy did after he reviewed it said it basically does everything we already do. However, they added a lot of clarity. And if you read the notes from WASB, that's exactly what they say. That it's adding a lot of clarity to what they had in the past, just to make it perfectly clear.
And I sat on the board at a time when we did have a vacancy that we had to fill using our past policy. And when I read this policy, it provides many more layers of what ifs. You know, if you don't do it in the first 60 days, what if, what if, what if? So I agree, it's just really adding clarity, but the initial read through, it's like, yeah, that's what we did. We had people apply, and there was kind of a statement, and then the board had an opportunity to ask questions, and it was by vote. So it did what we have done in the past. I've only experienced that one time in my 13 years, but it's...
Did you have any trouble with that? Is there any issues?
No. That's how we got Jack.
Well, there you go. Maybe we should revise it. Judy.
So, you know, unless you read through it and found some, there are many layers of, you know, if it's 60 days before, then you don't have to fill. There's all kinds of situations that, you know, weren't in our policy, but probably are good to have there for clarity.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. And then there was another kind of, well, there's two more, but there's another standalone for guidelines to ensure access to our LUMTech throughout the district. And the conversation that Tim presented at the meeting was, it was from an earlier batch, but he sent it to the LUMTech directors to be sure it was accurate in practice. And they made a lot of changes to the original text that we got, but Tim said it isn't changing anything that is occurring or that we don't already do. It's just updating it so that it reflects the practice that we currently expect out of our LEMTech directors, and that they know that they're responsible for. So he was very comfortable with that, and that's about all the information I have on that one. But again, if you need Tim to clarify anything, we can pull it and bring it back next month. If not, I would take a motion to approve.
So- Good, you go.
Oh, motion to approve.
Second.
I didn't have a question. Okay.
No questions? So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And then we have a change in our transportation, and I am going to pass that one over to Steve. He does a better job explaining the history and why we're doing what we're doing or thinking of it.
Sure, so thank you, Joan. So to begin with, this was not a 3-0 motion from the policy committee, so just note this was 2-1. And I'll share information from the perspective of the board member who did vote in favor of this, just so you have it as well. This topic is really related to our fee schedule and what our policy is regarding transportation to and from babysitters or licensed daycares, either before or after school. With the change in the location of Heritage Elementary School, we did receive a request from a community-based licensed daycare to offer school-provided transportation. So the policy that we currently have has a limitation for a location that's within 1 mile of an elementary school. And that limitation is that they have to be a licensed daycare center, but they have to host 17 or more students. The history behind that goes back to the opening of Arboretum Elementary School, when a community-based daycare, Adventures in Learning, suddenly found themselves within 1 mile of the Arboretum Elementary School location. That facility did petition the board at that time to create an opportunity for school-based transportation after school. The board did have some dialogue with that daycare location and ended up adding into our policy the language that allowed school transportation within 1 mile, but only if it was a licensed daycare and they had 17 or more students at that location. In effect, it was really designed to accommodate Adventures in Learning that was putting the request in. So fast forward to today, we have another community-based licensed daycare that's within 1 mile of the location of the new Heritage Elementary School. The owner of that facility has come forward to request reconsideration of the 17, as well as several families that have their students attending that location have come forward. So as board members, you did receive communication from the individuals that were requesting reconsideration of this policy. We did make a revision of the policy to share it with the policy committee, so the committee members could see what would that look like if we were to offer transportation to that location. So you see about in the middle of that, the cross through with more than 17 students. So that would make this location eligible for school-provided transportation. The committee did discuss the topic of should there be a number associated with this or not. In the end, where the committee landed on was the language for the licensed daycare provider in and of itself requires significant commitment and requirements to meet, state responsibilities for that daycare. And so the committee felt that, the majority of the committee felt like removing that number was supported. The board member who didn't support the policy change was looking at it from a more global perspective. So as board members, if you recall, a year ago in the fall, we presented a big picture topics on transportation. We shared information with you about some of the topics that we believe needed to be addressed due to the growth of our school district, the heritage location moving. And one of the most significant items that we presented during that conversation a little less than a year ago was the hazardous transportation area. At that time, the recommendation coming forward from administration was to focus on that because that in and of itself had the potential to result in significant change. And then come back to the other conversations. The other conversations include things like the shuttle buses between the schools. The shuttle buses between the elementary schools do result in instructional loss of time. And so there were other things in that presentation that the intent was to circle back to that at a later point in time. So the board member who voted against the change in this policy was stating that the preference of that individual was to have that larger picture discussion as opposed to one location in one elementary school attendance area. So that board member voted against this change, seeking more to come back to the bigger discussion. The rest of the committee actually agreed with that and felt like discussion is warranted on things like shuttle buses and the fact that our system has changed significantly since some of these practices were put in place decades ago. And so one of the things that we probably do want to have a conversation with as we finalize getting through all of these policies is, what would the board like to do for coming back to those other items, which are ultimately board policies. So like the shuttle bus is a board policy. You will see that when we get into the second half of the 700s. There's a number of them related to transportation. So as we bring those forward through the WASB review, one of the things that you might want to be thinking out as a board member is when do we want to have that conversation about coming back to some of those topics. So this was approved on a 2-to-1 motion to make the changes that you see on the screen. If approved tonight, that would open up the community-based daycare in the heritage attendance area for school-based transportation. You do see the fees up there, so families do have to pay for this service. And the service is not offered if there's an additional cost to the district. So you can see down at the bottom, if a bus becomes overloaded, we don't offer this service, and that would be at any of the elementary schools. So basically the way that we handle this is that we have a certain number of routes for our elementary schools. As those students are routed, the shuttle buses bring them to the location that would be transporting to that center. And so it doesn't cause the district to route additional complete routes. It's just the way our system works between the 3 elementary schools.
Quick question on the fee, just remind me, and I think I know the answer, but I want to confirm. If a student qualifies for using the student assistant fund, do these fees apply to that fund where they could pull from that fund to pay these fees if they are a qualifying family?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So this setup for a parent to request this system is an Infinite Campus. So Infinite Campus then reads the student's profile. So just like if they were signing up for fall co-curriculars, if the student's account has been approved for, let's say, the free program, the registration system will note that, and then the cost is changed to 0. So we do have a pretty nice system. We actually moved this to Infinite Campus last year. It just makes it easier for families. So thanks for asking, but yes, we do have that noted so that they would not have to pay in that circumstance, but then everyone else would have to pay as they go through the registration process according to the fees that you would see on the screen. So the recommendation is a 2-to-1 vote to recommend the changes that you see. I'd be happy to answer any questions. If the other 2 board members who voted for this are certainly welcome to share your thoughts as well about kind of the bigger picture conversation and the interest in having that.
The response, I appreciate the work that went into it, and it actually opens the opportunity to more than just the one individual site, which I think is different from the historical change that we made. So I really appreciate there's more opportunity for parents. I guess my question is, if a bus is overloaded, you have to stop the service up to the point where it's full. So how do you determine who's included, who's excluded from the babysitters population?
So, yeah, great question. So we have found that we are able to manage the requests within our existing transportation system because of the efficiency of the shuttle bus system. So while the shuttle bus system is not great for the loss of instructional time, it basically gathers all of the students that are going to the same location at the same elementary school. So as an example, with the person who put this request in, there is a student that attends this location from Prairie. So a Prairie bus would not go to this location. So the pre-existing shuttle bus that is used by St. John's students, used by students for a number of reasons, the student would hop on that shuttle, would go across to Heritage, and then would basically join the other students, maybe from Arboretum as well, that would then be bused to this location. So it's a quite efficient system, but it certainly doesn't take into account some of that loss of instructional time that's occurring as those shuttles are crossing between our 3 elementary schools, which I know is a concern of our elementary administrators, as well as some board members have expressed that as well. But it is a pretty efficient system that we have in place because we've been using it beyond the daycare. We use it for St. John's, private schools, students who go to one location and then walk, let's say, to a grandparent's house. So there's a number of reasons why a student would use that system.
I'm trying to remember what Randy's recommendation was at the time when this shuttle bus policy
Yep.
or issue or whatever came into play, not
Yep.
specific to this, but in looking at our whole program. And I want to say it was something, I can't remember. Do you remember what his recommendation was?
Yes, so the thought process from administration last fall, when we were getting into the issue of the Heritage moving to a new location, the middle school moving to a new location, was that the hazardous transportation component on its own should be solved first, and then park the remainder of it until we had established the transportation boundaries for the 24-25 school year. So that was his recommendation. It wasn't necessarily related to like an isolated request like this. It was more related to, let's not also end the shuttle system at the same time we're changing who can be bused and who can't. That might be too much for the community to handle at one time. He also suggested that due to the challenges that exist with after-school daycare, that we need to look out maybe 2 years out to be able to really establish that, as well as look at additional options that we might be able to host in our building. So the general recommendation was to not explore that at the time we were exploring hazardous and what the transportation would be for each of the schools, and to hold that. The question for the committee then is, as you start looking through the 700 policies that are going to be on the next round of the WASB group, is at what time does that make sense? The middle school opening in September of 26 will create significant change in the system because a number of middle school students are going to be required to walk starting that fall. That may be a time to take a look at the system as a whole as well. So that would potentially be far enough out there that parents would have enough advance notice to take a look at it. So that could be an option where we could take a look at that topic this year with the idea of not the fall of 25, but maybe the fall of 26. But that's certainly something we would look forward to board member input on as we start, going through that next group in the 700s.
I guess I would just like to add a few comments. I voted in support of this policy as written. One, I think that the shortage of licensed or unlicensed daycare in our community is critical. I think that, I have nieces and nephews who have children or going to have children, and they are telling me there's a 2-year waiting list to get into many of the centers. And so people rely on these kind of daycare situations. And I feel as a school community, we need to help them out. And I agree, we have bigger problems and a bigger picture to discuss and to solve, but I would love us to be able to work with these kind of centers to provide that service, because there is such a shortage. And this is a center that in the past would have had transportation. My understanding is she has far too many kids that she could individually transport. So all of a sudden, parents then are like 2 months before school starting stuck because they have a need and she's providing it, and now it's all changing. And in reference to the number, I felt the number was so arbitrary because for many of these centers, they have kids that come an hour here, they come after school or before school, or they come sporadically, and how do you count them? And really, that if it's licensed, I feel we should be providing the service.
On top of that, the license will prohibit them from they can't have 17
No, they
in-home
can't have,
daycare.
but
So
you could count. Yeah.
If they were unlicensed, they could have that many.
True,
So I don't want to
true.
punish someone for being
But the
licensed and following
licensure
the.
is it's a big deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed.
So anyway, that
Yeah.
was my rationale for supporting it.
If we're a couple years out from evaluating the whole process, it's ridiculous.
So, with that discussion, if there are no other questions, we do need a motion to approve this.
Go ahead.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And any other comments or questions at this point? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. And our last policy, actually, I'm going to maybe turn over to Monica.
Yes, just briefly, so we all know we are, all districts across the nation, this is a federal policy, Title IX. We're asking for approval for this policy this evening because we have a deadline that we need to meet, which is an August 1st deadline. And then what we will do is we will bring the policy back to the committee for review and then bring it to the full board. But so that we can be in compliance with the federal guidelines. We're looking for that to be approved this evening.
So the policy is in your packet, and it wasn't available at the time of our last policy meeting, so it's,
We received it this morning.
yeah, it's the timing, and then the approval is very kind of cumbersome. So I don't,
I think the one thing to note is that, again, as Dr. Kelsey Brown had said, is that we have to have this, the board has to take action on this, so it takes effect on August 1st. And that's how the motion has to read, is that this policy takes first on any conduct, takes effect on any conduct that occurs on August 1st or later. Our current policy, which is the current law, is in effect up until that point. And so the two policies are not the same and cannot cover for each other. So our current policy covers until this one takes over on August 1st.
But I move that we accept this policy.
I will second that.
any comments? So it will come back through the policy
Correct.
committee, but we are approving it tonight in advance. So all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Thank you. And that ends our committee reports. Moving on to administrative reports. We have a couple documents, Steve, for middle school issues, right, Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Joan. So I'll start with what's in board book, and then I'll mention what was in your folder this evening. So in board book, there were a couple of agenda items related to the construction projects that are occurring in the district. Agenda item B is a stormwater management maintenance agreement for the new middle school. Agenda item C is are 3 utility easements for the new middle school. And agenda item D is a stormwater management agreement for 905 Bethel Circle. And so as Vogel Brothers was preparing to pull the building permit for the new middle school. We had discussions with the Village of Waunakee about some of the property documentation that we still needed to complete. So as an example, the existing site had multiple parcel numbers that had developed over the history of the district. We had worked with the village to change that to one parcel number for the new middle school. Ally took that down to Dane County to get that recorded, and then we realized we had a little bit of an issue with the paperwork. We needed some additional signatures, so we had to start that process over. So we had to get a new certified survey map for the property to be able to get that completed. Then in addition to that, we had to record the utility easements. So the utility easements go back to conversations that the district had with the village last fall. As you know, South Street is completely torn up and all of the utilities are being redone. So we worked with the village collaboratively last fall to come up with the most cost-effective way to prepare the utilities for the new school. That was a part of the Plan Commission approval for the new school, and there are utilities that run behind the new middle school, which turned out to be the most cost-effective approach for us to do that. However, we needed to turn those agreements from the documentation and the plan agreements and the certified survey map into agreements that we needed to present to you tonight. So the three of them that we're asking for approval on start with the stormwater management system. And basically what that agreement is saying, if you look through it, is that the district is agreeing to maintain the stormwater management system on the middle school site. If we fail to do so, the Village of Waunakee has the right to enter our property and correct the stormwater features. So it's putting the expectation on the district to do the maintenance of those stormwater features while providing the local municipality the ability to correct them in the event of our failure. That's a little bit different than what happened at the new intermediate school. So at the time that the new intermediate school was built, it was actually in the town of Westport, in Dane County, so that Dane County had jurisdiction for the stormwater management for the new intermediate school. And we actually had to enter into a 5-year agreement with a third-party vendor to maintain our stormwater agreement at the intermediate school. So it's a different looking agreement. Now this property's in the Village of Waunakee, so the Village of Waunakee is not requiring us to have like a 3-year agreement or a 5-year agreement, you know, with a third party. They're requiring us to maintain our property and basically have the right to correct it in the event that we don't. You will see that on the Bethel Circle stormwater agreement. You will see that on the middle school one. Regarding the easements, you will see 3 different easements for the utilities for the property. Why you have also information in your packet is because the Village of Waunakee had feedback to our district attorney. You will see that Rebecca put into your packet, her name is Jenna Russo, so she's the attorney that we hired to do property work. Jenna has been working with the Village of Waunakee to get the easement language and the stormwater agreement language to meet village requirements. So there have been a few back and forths. As an example, it originally said Waunakee Utilities. The request has been to change that to the Village of Waunakee. So what you see in your packet is a slightly updated version of what you saw in Board Book, where it's just some minor language changes, but if you're interested in what those were, we included the email that showed the dialogue between our attorney and the Village of Waunakee. So we would be requesting, if there's a motion to approve these agreements, that we reference the updated versions that were included in your packet. We wish we would have had these in front of you like a month ago. It would have made things a little less stressful for Vogel as they were pulling the permits. But we needed to get these in front of you so we could get going with the permits for the school. Vogel does have a permit for demolition as well as a permit for the asbestos abatement and the other activities that are occurring there. What we're seeking is the permit for the actual construction once the property is demoed. So be happy to answer any questions that you might have, but we are requesting approval of the stormwater agreements for the new middle school for Bethel Circle, and then the 3 utility easements for the new middle school location.
So Steve, is this, would you say less restrictive than what we had with the intermediate school because we can get our own, look for our own third-party company to help resolve the issues?
Yes, because the agreement we had at the intermediate school did require a multi-year agreement with a third party that we had to fund, and we didn't have the opportunity to do it ourselves. Basically, the village is providing the district with the opportunity to keep it, maintain it ourselves, but is maintaining the option that they would need to correct it if any failure occurs. And obviously, stormwater, the reason for that is it affects more than our property, right? So if there's a failure of the stormwater on our property, it affects the broader community. And so we have the same interest that the village does to make sure that that doesn't occur.
So we would be looking for a motion to approve the
Motion to
list.
approve all 3 easements, we want them one at a time?
No, we can take them all.
Second.
So the newest versions
Right.
of the agreements that have been presented. Okay, so we have a first and a second. Any other questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Thank you. And thank you, Steve, for all of your work and working through all this. And I know with Randy leaving, it's a lot more is falling on your lap, and I just appreciate all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. So any announcements or correspondence from anybody? If not, we are down to consent agenda, which as always, you may pull any part out if you would like for separate consideration, or you can approve the whole list. We have a lot of items in there, including a couple new exchange students.
I don't think it needs to be pulled out, but I certainly think it's worth mentioning item 4 and 5 because they deal with the mental health
Yes.
work that our district is doing, particularly with the Psychotherapy Center of Waunakee. We've been in this agreement for the last 2 years, and it's to me, it's just exciting to see how many new referrals we've had over the last 2 years, 83, and over 323 sessions at the high school alone, almost 100 at the middle school. And combining that with the building bridges, I think it's just important for the public to understand how proactive we have been with mental health for our students.
Perfect. Thank you for pointing that out, Mike.
I would like to take a motion to pull the co-curricular list from the consent agenda and move it to next month's vote.
Pull the whole list and move it
Whole
to
list.
next one. So I'd need a second on that motion. With no,
I'll second it.
okay. So with a second, do we
Do it by roll.
do we vote on that, or does it?
I don't think we have to vote to pull it off, do we?
I think we still do. Yeah, I think we still do.
Robert's rules, you will vote.
Yeah. So we do have a motion and a second to pull the entire consent agenda, or just the co-curricular list, and move it to next month. So we're just going to vote on that part. All in favor say aye
Aye.
to pull it. Opposed say no.
No.
No. So it will remain in. So I would then take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Any other questions within the document? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Thank you. With that, we are down to board business. Any legislative update that anybody wants to mention? If not, scheduling future meetings. Steve, you had mentioned facilities.
If possible, and I think Rebecca was starting to try to work out some dates, because one of our board members,
Yeah,
actually two of the board
We do
members.
have a number. How do you want to do that, Rebecca?
If you, who's on facility? I put
So,
the,
I am
And Ted.
Ted and Jack.
So,
how about if I try to connect with you guys this week and we try to go back down?
Okay.
I won't be able to get a hold of Jack until next week, actually. So early next week, I'll get a hold of him. I will send him a text. He sporadically has been answering my text.
Okay,
So I'll see how quickly I can get that going.
okay. Any other, you said budget doesn't have to meet. Do you need a DEI?
I believe
Yes, please,
DEI
just to-
coming back in,
yeah.
right?
Do we have
To
on
do a
schedule?
review of, it's not on the schedule. I don't think we scheduled it. We just said that we'd come back and review the changes that Tiffany had made to the plan.
Prior to the
Our next
meeting?
Right.
Regular board meeting is, I bring my other glasses.
12th.
The 12th is
Right?
12th.
Yeah, so sometime
I
between now
suggest
and
you might want to work with Dr. Brown and Rebecca with,
Jack.
they have a brain moment.
If you're looking at the first week in August, is that what you're looking at? or
I'm
no?
concerned that won't be here.
Tiffany?
Oh, Tiffany?
I don't know what hers, I thought she mentioned
By,
being gone.
Lisa, by any chance, do you know Lisa's or Tiffany's schedule?
I meet with Tiffany.
Do you know if Tiffany's going to be gone in early August, or?
Let me just pull up the calendar.
I'm trying to do that quickly too.
Do I have a one-to-one coming up with her? On a Sunday, that's not quite.
What day is it? What day are you requesting?
The first week in August.
Yeah.
She is here except not Thursday and Friday.
The 8th and 9th or the 1st and 2nd?
The 8th and 9th, it looks like she's not here.
Are you available on Thursday, August 1st?
Thursday, August 1st, it looks like she will be here, but she has time blocked out. with
I will be
board
gone.
members.
You'll be gone?
The last week of July.
Okay.
This is another one I can work with you guys on if you want me to.
Yeah, why don't we try that?
Yeah.
Are you
I
okay
would
with
guess
that,
she
John?
has some
I'm okay with that.
flexibility on one of those.
And if we, I
Just
can always have a
directionally,
sub.
a Wednesday, August 7th in the evening,
Yeah.
like around 5:30?
That would work for
directionally?
me.
Let's
Yeah.
work on that.
Yeah, targeting
Mhm.
Wednesday, August 7th at 5:30 PM.
I will look into that.
And then for myself, the 6th works too, so. I may need to zoom in, but right now I don't need to.
Okay.
Any,
I don't know if we need a co-curricular, but we don't have everybody here, so.
I'd have to talk to Nick to see where he is on that.
Okay.
I could do that too.
Thanks.
Sorry, Rebecca.
Normally, I do a little legwork for you guys, but I've been a little busy.
That's a little lot.
Brian, do we need HR?
We don't. We're still in our summer break.
Summer break, and I heard budget was taking a month break.
Month break.
How do I get an HR for crying out loud?
I think the right committees, we don't meet at all.
Reminder of the board retreat on the 17th. So I think we're okay. So we are ready to adjourn this meeting. Motion to adjourn, anybody?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Are we at Schumacher again?
We are at Schumacher again, yes.